All right, so I'm recording now as well. Okay, so Russ, if you can just admit more people as they come in, since I won't be able to really look at that.
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second 1 Million Cups Westminster meeting. If you want, feel free to use the chat function to just introduce yourself, maybe tell us where you're from. And we're going to go ahead and kick off with actual video. So last time we kicked off with a bit of like a slideshow presentation about 1 Million Cups. Today, we're actually going to try showing you a video. It's only 30 seconds long that encapsulates what 1 Million Cups is all about. So Russ, if you can go ahead and launch that video on your shared screen, that would be great.
1 Million Cups is a weekly educational program developed by the Kauffman Foundation.
Over the years, we've added more cities. It creates a great energy here to see what's happening across the country.
What I've learned from other entrepreneurs is very, very valuable.
Sitting in a room with other people that have ideas too, it helps people to leave thinking, you know what, my idea is worth something. It's worth pursuing. It's worth going after it. Even if it looks like a challenge, I should still go out and try to do it.
Let me go into a little bit more detail about what was shown in the video.
Yeah, please do.
One of the main, just to go very, very quickly through it, is for the participants, they are encouraged. This isn't a pitch. You're not looking for new clients. What this is you are making presentations to show people what you do and how you're doing it, and have in mind questions about, okay, how can the community help you with things that aren't just aren't working for you, or to give you ideas as to what you're doing that you're not doing right now. It is inclusive of the entire community within a geographical area, although now that Devin's here, it's not restricted to just Westminster. It's across the entire 1 Million Cups organization across the country, which I didn't know before. We're for the community. It's based on the community. And we set up connections. It's not really networking. We're setting up connections with people who could help us. The important thing is that nobody owns 1 Million Cups. It's very much a cooperative effort across the country. Many, many, many different more communities. I don't have on the top of my head how many. Do you know how many, Graham?
I think it's 168 or 170 now.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah. And we're the most recent.
Yes. We meet every week, Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. People register, and then anybody can join. All they have to do is register, and they will get the link for the upcoming presentation. If you wish to present, again, go onto the 1 Million Cups website, Westminster, and you can log in and put yourself up there as somebody who wants to present. The important thing for the presenters is that everything leads to the question, what can the community do for me? That is probably the most important thing that you need to think of in order to keep everything focused towards the goal. And that is the goal. What can, and flip it out. What can the community do for you? And what can we as a community, what are you doing for the community? And what can we as a community help you do that? I think I said that right.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Mick. So also want to just shout out to our community sponsors, Magic, the Mid-Atlantic Gigabit Innovation Collaboratory, and Furnace Hills Coffee. If you aren't familiar with Furnace Hills, you go to furnacehillscoffee.com and you will get 25% off of their coffee in lieu of us being able to meet together in person. And if you enter in this code, you will get 25% off your order. So, and that works, you know, they distribute all over the country. So please take advantage of that 25% off their coffee. All right, let's go, without further ado, go ahead and jump right into our very first presentation. Let me introduce Vilma from Openix Solutions, who is a Westminster-based company. Vilma, go ahead and share your screen and take it away. And everybody else, please mute while she's presenting.
Good morning, everybody. It's really my pleasure to be here, and thank you for invitation to present. Yeah, so I'm just gonna start. You know, you can hear from my accent that I'm not English native person, but I'm living in Westminster, and I'm proud of that, and I love this place where I am. And we established here a company because we like this area. So our company, and let me share the screen. Our company, when you mentioned that it's not only Westminster, you know, like based companies, but our company is based like globally. We have our team working from 3 different countries, and here in Westminster we have headquarters. So, which is very interesting, I think. Because most of the people thinking that all headquarters needs to be in Baltimore or Washington, D.C. So let me share my screen. I hope that you can see. I have a lot of slides, but I'm not going to use all of them. I'm just going to skim through and present our company from high level, what we are doing, because we are doing a lot. So we are innovation empowered with technologies company. We are working with the latest technologies, and we are working with products which are not invented, let's say, and not developed, so something new. And currently we are focusing on artificial intelligence in healthcare, so which is very interesting field and very broad. What we are doing, we are designing, delivering, analyzing, re-engineering software. If somebody needs, for example, application to be re-engineered, or for example, different application pieces to talk to each other, like communicate to each other, we are creating the level and layer between applications to make sure that, for example, in clinics or hospitals, they don't need to re-enter multiple times the same information, like patient demographics, or for example, encounter information. So we are creating these layers between and making sure that it's working since you enter the first time in front desk, that the same information gonna follow through all systems we have, like organization have. We are doing optimization. We are supporting our software, our products if needed. We are automating and making and doing audits as well. So what we do, we have 2 divisions actually in our company. We have IT products and IT consulting services. We are developing our own products. And most current is the system for caregiver and impaired patients, like in dementia. So we're working on our product to be released and to test with beta sites. IT consulting, we are providing consultants for healthcare IT market, construction, and startup initiatives. I'm working with a lot of startups globally, and I'm bringing them to the market if I can see that the product is really promising. So I'm walking them through the different kind of stages. So IT consulting services, what we are doing, we are consulting a lot of healthcare organizations, and our domains, it's very broad. As you can see, it's from exchange system, which is nowadays it's very popular, called interoperability. So it's like a government mandate that you have to have some exchange with your electronic healthcare records with different kind of software, different kind of organizations. And during COVID, that was very visible, that people, for example, traveling to different countries or different states and having like COVID, and nobody knows what kind of health history that person has. And if they are in critical condition, nobody knows how to get the records from their physicians. So this is very hot topic nowadays throughout the world. It's not only United States. So we are helping a lot of different organizations to integrate through the hubs. Our target clients, it's hospital, clinics, medical centers, healthcare networks, research facilities, healthcare players. So we're working with pharmaceutical companies. I have clients with like Roche in Switzerland, and we are helping them to implement AI, artificial intelligence algorithms in order to find the best medication for a particular patient, which is very interesting actually. We are working on the same time on project-based IT services. So if somebody needs any project, like develop some application, or for example, extension to some application, we are doing that as well. We are not concentrating on big clients. We are helping startups, small clients, small clinics, because we know that these people and organization need help as well. So I'm not gonna go through each slide and explain what exactly we are doing. I'm just gonna skim through. It's like enterprise integration. So for example, a lot of—
And we're actually at time though,
Yeah.
Vilma, so we gotta move
so
over to the
this is
Q&A
like
if you
IT
want.
operation management, business or processes automation. So that, like I said, once you enter something, it's gonna go through all systems. We are designing from idea and developing into the product, and even helping companies to market their product. Consulting services, providing database management. We're cleansing data, because you cannot work with the data if it's, as we are saying, junk data in the database. So we need to cleanse that and make sure that machines understand the data in the database. We are doing KDI mapping on reconciliation. This is for payers in United States. So basically, all companies like insurance, healthcare insurance companies, they have these kind of issues, and we're helping them out to go and solve them. Of course, we are doing IT crisis management, and if they have some issues, for example, intrusion in their network, or some other issues, we are helping them out to clean that up and restore all operations back. And of course, we're working with system mergers. So basically, when companies acquiring each other, so we are helping them out to make the right decisions and to merge systems into one system. So this is what we are doing. Products, I think that I already covered one for dementia. One is Wellness 360. So it's basically a platform for the providers and patients throughout the world. And we're working on construction management software as well. So I think this is the short presentation from my end. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vilma. It's wonderful. We already have a question here from Jonathan Wheatman, attorney at law. How difficult is it to navigate HIPAA-like compliance internationally?
So HIPAA compliance is actually only in United States, and they are called differently in different kind of countries. And European Union, for example, each country has their own so-called HIPAA compliance, but it's like privacy laws. So, and we are following all of them. So in Germany, for example, nobody can work with patients' data outside Germany. You need to sit actually physically in Germany to touch these these records. And we are trying to work with de-identify records most of the time. We're just pushing our software solution into the production in the like client's let's say space at the last minute. We are testing and working on the de-identified data. I hope it answered the question.
It did. Thank
All
you.
right, we have, yes, well, okay, I'm sorry. I see the community question. We'll leave that for the end if we have no other questions. Tamar is asking, Vilma, are you familiar with HIMSS, Health Information Management Information Systems Society, and that Maryland has a chapter, and she provided the link to that chapter in the chat box.
I do know, and I am familiar. I'm all the time joining HIMSS conferences in Orlando or Las Vegas. So it's like this year I know that we canceled, but I probably need to join Maryland HIMSS chapter. Most of the time, somehow I'm joining Chicago because I have people, I know people in Chicago, and they're inviting all the time in the chapter. Thank you very much for providing this link. I will join them.
I have a question about your the AI that you're developing for the dementia patient use case. Do you have a name for that? Are you going to brand that separately?
We
from
will
Openix?
brand that separately, and we already started company like different name. Yes, and it's going to be patterned on that.
Excellent. Any other questions? You can either use the raise hand function, or you can put your question in the chat. While we're waiting to see if anybody else has follow-up questions. So Vilma, the whole point of 1 Million Cups is really to help elicit feedback, from the community, but also help from the community. So what can Westminster, 1MC Westminster, do for you?
We are constantly, looking for clients, and we're trying, like I said, to help all kind of clients, not only big corporations or big hospitals. So I know that a lot of small businesses and small clinics we have in Westminster. So if anyone needs our help, please, contact me. I really want to work with, local community and help local community. At the same time, if anyone needs any help, for example, with contacts in Europe, if you want to, go outside the United States, I'm really happy to help and introduce you to many people, because I have quite a good network in European business society.
Excellent. That would be great. I'm sure there are plenty of entrepreneurs here that would want to leverage those connections. Devin, who's actually joining us from Fort Collins, Colorado today, he'll be presenting from Zentainer momentarily. He says, Vilma, if you could narrow the focus to one very specific customer with one very specific problem, who are they and what is the problem? Is it healthcare related?
Not only. It's like, yes, but healthcare, we are experts in healthcare. So, and the problem is, actually, the biggest problems we are solving, and it takes time, it's database cleansing for whatever organization, like a healthcare organization, is thinking where we're going to be in 10 years. They understand that they need to have clean database, because everything is going towards artificial intelligence. And I don't know if you are aware, but for example, X-rays nowadays are already using AI to read the scans, to read the pictures. So if you think that, a person is reading these pictures, nowadays it's actually a machine reading of the picture, and only with questionable quality pictures or something, then person is getting into the game. But this is what we're seeing, that's the biggest issue. And actually, just to educate people in healthcare, educate people like how they need to solve these problems. It's actually the biggest issue. Solution is not the biggest issue already, but to get through the people and through the vision, through leadership, that's the biggest issue we're facing lately, because we need to go through education first, and then just, solution is the easiest one. So that's probably what I could see.
Excellent insights. Thank you. if there are no further questions, then let's thank Vilma again for presenting. Thank you, Vilma. Everyone's clapping, you can see.
Thank you for having me.
And please don't go. You're welcome to obviously
I will.
stay and participate with the rest of the day. So let's try something a little bit different than what we did last week. As we transition over to Zentainer, we're going to do a quick poll. So if you look down your Zoom functions, there's going to be a polls button. And oh, here it is. It just popped up for you. Okay, so has the likelihood of you starting your own business changed as a result of the pandemic? Are you more likely or less likely to start a business? And so let's see how people vote here. I think it's not, Russ, it's not letting me vote, just so you know, because I think I'm a co-host. So if you're a co-host, you might not see the.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm the same. I cannot vote.
Russ, are you able to take away co-host privileges for some of us?
I can try.
Might be too late now that the poll's launched.
No pressure, Russ.
All right, we got. Okay, so do it one more time. Or no, it's presenting me a different dialog box now. Okay.
Okay. I only unco-hosted you. I will have to unco-host everyone individually. So give me a minute.
That's all right. No, don't worry about that. All right. So do we see the poll result? Well, okay. So now we know how this works. So I don't see the poll results anymore. I voted, but it's no longer there.
The poll is still open.
Okay.
Once we're done, I can end the poll, and then I think you'll be able to see.
Well, interesting. So right now, basically, it's split between more likely and no change at all. So presumably no change could have meant that you were going to start a business or not, but certainly you're not going to feel more motivated to start a business because of the pandemic, whereas 43% of you said that they would. Only one of you said less likely. So interesting perceptions of risk there, I think, as well. And we could probably do a whole discussion on the perceptions of risk and market opportunities. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you guys for participating with that. And now we are going to. Does everyone? First of all, does everyone see the poll results? Am I the only one that sees them? Okay, you guys do see. Okay, cool. All right, so make sure. All right, let's make sure Devin Johnson's a co-host again now. And let's go ahead and flip it over to Devin Johnson from Zentainer. Devin, go ahead and share your screen, introduce yourself, and take it away. Everyone else, please mute.
Everybody should be able to hear me now, I hope so. Hi, I'm Devin from Zentainer in Fort Collins, Colorado. Let me go ahead and share my screen with everybody, and then we can kick this off. Okay, can everyone see my slides? Is that working? Excellent. Okay, I see nodding heads, so we're good. Okay, well, as I said, my name is Devin Johnson. I'm CEO of Zentainer, and we are a boutique digital agency from Fort Collins, Colorado. And we specialize in website design, digital marketing, and e-commerce strategy. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about some trends that we're seeing amongst our partners in private equity. And I'd like to ask for your assistance to help us either validate or disprove those trends on a larger scale. So some context here is that investments in private equity are growing faster than in the public market, a lot faster. They've done six-fold since 2010, compared to a two-fold in public equity over that same time. Simply put, more accredited investors are putting their dollars here because on average, they're seeing better returns. This is a graph of the S&P 500 versus a major private equity index. And this increase in demand has been across the board and includes private equity groups and firms whose portfolio companies are in that lower to lower middle market range as well, valued at between $5 and $50 million of sales. And those are the type of private equity firms and companies that we, Zentainer, work with. Now, traditionally, these private equity groups have looked to grow value inside of their portfolio companies through a variety of activities. such as with mergers and acquisitions of competitors or similar companies, through expansion in product line and services, by optimizing margins and product line efficiency, and they make investments like in new websites or custom code to move data around, as we were just hearing about, or activities like marketing and branding work. And this is where our company Zentainer comes into the picture. We've been called on to help with the strategy and execution of new websites, of custom code development, and digital marketing for these companies. And that's what we've been used to doing up until pretty much recently. Now we're beginning to see new trends amongst our private equity partners. These firms are becoming increasingly active in the management of their portfolio companies. They want to know what's happening at a granular level. So now we're being called on to help with activities such as pre-close digital due diligence, where we're auditing their marketing, their data integrity, and assessing the viability of e-commerce sales channels for these companies. We're also starting to see that these firms are hiring operating partners with digital backgrounds. Previously, it seems like their partners and principals had mostly accounting and management expertise, but now we're starting to see digital too. And finally, these firms are making new types of investments, like in e-commerce platforms. For instance, right now, we're building an e-commerce platform for a major manufacturing company who traditionally only sold at large scale, but now wants to sell single units to anyone. We're also being asked for advanced marketing and sales automation. Questions like, how do you put Salesforce in and build nurturing flows in a company that's never done any marketing at all? Well, that's what we're doing. We're solving that problem. This is just a part of a data flow diagram, actually, even for a company that we're working with. And finally, we're also being increasingly asked for data dashboards. How can I view all of the critical metrics for a portfolio company in one place? So that's what we're getting asked for now. And naturally, it gets us thinking about, well, what else could we be doing here? One of those things might be to further our role as digital advisors. If we build better processes for ourselves right now, we can develop more comprehensive digital plans for our clients. We're also kind of in a unique position here to help with goal alignment throughout an organization. I'm not sure if anyone here has been part of a merger and acquisition activity before, but we see rifts happen in that where, nobody wants to lose good talent or leads due to misaligned goals, but that can happen. And what's kind of unique here is that as an outside organization, Zentainer works with the principals, the managers, and the employees because we need buy-in from all these people. So I'm curious, how can we better create goals or keep those goals aligned throughout all these? Lastly, there seems to be a unique opportunity here to unify the metrics across these portfolio companies, not just within them. That way we could show a private equity group the critical metrics for all the portfolio companies all in one place. But what would that even look like? I'm not exactly sure. Year-over-year growth, sales revenue by channel maybe. Well, regardless of what it is, what I do need to know right now is even if this is a worthwhile investment of our time to go develop strategies around these things. And that's kind of the crux of this entire presentation. Are we participating right now in the digital evolution of private equity? I believe so, but I'm totally biased. And our sample set right now are 2 private equity groups that we've been working with. So this is where I need your help. Do our hypotheses carry any weight? And those hypotheses are that private equity groups want to open digital sales channels for their portfolio companies, that they want more digital expertise and diligence in guiding these portfolio companies. And lastly, that they want unified metrics across their portfolio companies. If any of these hold up or not, then we can correctly adjust our sales to match the changing winds. And that really brings me to the ask slide that I have for this community today. Do you know if what we're seeing with our 2 partners is actually a larger trend in private equity? Who could I talk with to help test those hypotheses? And of course, I'm curious to know, since you just watched this presentation, do you understand how we're providing value to these companies and private equity firms? Did I communicate that effectively? Finally, if you happen to know anyone in private equity or not even, this is totally hypothetical, I'm curious, what would prevent you from making an introduction for us based on this presentation? Thank you all so much. I think that's time, and we'll go to QA now.
Excellent. Very, very, very good presentation, Devin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grant.
Very illuminating too. Maybe, and we have a question here actually. Let me go right to the chat. And for those of you, again, if you have questions for Devin, please post them in the chat, or you can click on the participants button, and there's like a raise hand feature that you should see there. Oh yes, and thank you for stopping your screen sharing for us. So the first question is from Mick Mancuso from Iron Crow Productions. Mick asks, wouldn't there always be metrics that are specific to a single company or market niche? Wouldn't a common metric analysis miss those metrics?
That's a great question, and one I am trying to figure out. That's the truth of it, right? How do you compare a B2C company that sells drones to a B2B manufacturing and distribution company? Is that possible? I mean, it seems like there are certainly some things like EBITDA, right? That, okay, a portfolio, a private equity group bought a company at X and are trying to 4X that, sales, and then sell them off to another private equity in 4 years. Well, that might be an accounting-based metric, and certainly that's something that could be shown in there. But yeah, I would love your feedback on, like, does that look like sales revenue by channel? Because I can split those figures out across companies, but again, if this company over here has been mostly inside sales for their entire lifetime value versus another company that focuses entirely on pay-per-click advertising campaigns, how do we compare those? Is there any way? I don't know.
Jonathan Wheatman, attorney at law, asks, what is your mix of pre-investment services, parentheses auditing, versus post-investment services, portfolio management?
Good question. It's about 50-50 at this exact moment, right? So we've done several what we've referred to as pre-transaction or pre-close due diligence in either marketing or digital. And then we've done some post-close auditing as well. And then that's the mix of like the actual auditing, like you referred to, versus the portfolio company management, which gets onto the digital side of all the things that we offer, where it's really, hey, okay, we did that audit or we did that due diligence process. Here are the 10 things you need to really step through in quick succession to generate some value for that company. Okay, we're going to go start putting those things in place. That might be new website, might be some digital marketing strategy, Salesforce setup, you kind of name it. Did that answer the question? And by the way, I'm not sure if everyone is available or if muted mics are turned on for this meeting, but I love talking in real time with people if people would want to unmute themselves, and then we can go back and forth.
And it did answer the question. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, John. That was a good question too. And that's, honestly, it's a little bit of what I'm trying to feel out through this conversation too, is does it make sense what I'm saying, that the value that we give to the private equity groups and these companies, was that communicated effectively? Or actually, am I kind of diluting the message here by saying, hey, we're a digital agency, we do all these things. Really, I should be focusing on one or two here, the digital and the marketing due diligence, for instance, and then everything else trickles down out of that,
And we have another question from Dr. Robert Wack from Frederick Health and board president at Magic. He wants to know, and this is more of a clarifying question, I think, to the previous one, what are the sources or source of the data?
There are multiple, right? So if we're talking about I'll give you for instance, we're working with a company right now that their bread and butter are service contracts for gigantic analytical machines inside of laboratories. But they also do have an e-commerce sales channel online where they sell individual parts. One of those data streams would be that e-commerce platform online, because it's reporting back the sales revenue. Another data stream would be the website that's leading to that e-commerce platform, because now I can pull metrics associated with the origin of that purchase action, such as was it organic or paid or referral or what. If it was paid, then I can link it all the way back potentially to a PPC campaign. So that's all kind of front end stuff that I'm talking about. There are metrics like inside of the ERP, right? So if that company is in Salesforce, right? So if that company is mostly focused, like this one I just spoke about, on sales contracts, I need to also be able to pull data out of Salesforce and their ERP to show that was a closed contract. It took 3 months of negotiation, or even 6 months when they came back up for renegotiation on that contract to land that deal. But here's the attribution record stepping all the way back to this pay-per-click ad campaign. And if I don't have data attribution all the way back, then I can't make a clean attribution record for, hey, your pay-per-click ad campaigns associated with these really do lead to sales in contracts, even if it takes 3 or 6 months. Those are a couple examples of data sources. Are you looking for anything else specific?
No, that's very helpful. I was just trying to get a sense of how much of your value add is from private data, the data internal to the company, like from Salesforce or the versus what's publicly available. And obviously for small companies and startups, there's not a lot of publicly available data. So I was just trying to get a sense of where in the relationship between the private equity and the company you have to insert yourself to then start generating the value of your service. And it seems like you have to be, the private equity has to be pretty close to the company already for you to be able to get in and get under the hood and generate these value add analysis.
Yeah, 100%. There are some things we can do, like if I know the value proposition of a company, for instance, I can go do an SEO landscape analysis, and I can look at what keywords are happening and what their competitors' websites are up to. I can do some kind of really high level digital footprinting for those competitors as well, and get a sense of, oh yeah, even from a 20,000 foot view, the UX on your competitor versus you is totally different, right? But certainly when it gets down to the, all right, I want to know real metrics on your website, not the ones that Moz or SpyFu or any of these other million tools we can dig up give us from an outside perspective. I really need to get Google Analytics and access to that ERP and Salesforce or whatever you have underneath the hood.
And for those of you who have startup companies and don't know, and you're not really familiar with the world of private equity firms are one of your potential exits as a company in terms of the M&A, the mergers and acquisitions that they do when they are building up their portfolios. And often they will have like a thesis or a theme of companies that sort of complement each other. And actually, I have my own question about that, but I want to get to Rick's question here first from Startup Portal. Rick's also a CPA, by the way, in case you have any specific questions about some of these transactions. But he asks, are the private equity companies investing in your due diligence recommendations? And then what's the estimate percentage of those? Is that
that's a good question. What we have been doing is saying, okay, here's the digital or marketing due diligence for our company. Here are the red flags, kind of like, oh my goshes, versus warnings versus just, hey, these are some optimizations you could be making in the future. Giving them that high level as well as then kind of a breakdown detailed report. And then I hand that off to one of the operating partners or principals inside of these private equity groups, and they apply their own multiplier valuation to each one of those items. And then that helps them understand, okay, based just on digital, we're going to apply this X multiplier to the company valuation. And they, I guess, aggregate all those together. And then, they say, cool, those are all rolled up into the ultimate multiplier that we are purchasing that company for. How we have seen the transactional side of it kind of happen for us is that the private equity groups themselves are, if it's part of the due diligence side and they have not yet bought the company, they're saying to these potential portfolio companies, here's a company that you need to let in, work with, and you're going to pay them X fee for them to come do this due diligence because it's critical to us even considering purchasing your business. If it's on the post-close side, and it's an audit, it'll be kind of the same pattern where they say, hey, here's this company, you should go work with them. But if it comes into any of the actual execution work, the tactical stuff, then it can be, oh, hey, here's a recommendation we have. You don't absolutely have to go work with this company, but you might want to. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it answered the question. I guess and I'll put my video. Sorry, Oops, put my video on. Answer the question. I guess the follow up is you sort of have a target. You've done the analysis of the target. Are you able to do the follow through even if they don't do the acquisition?
Oh, to go execute that work for the target company if they wanted to.
Sure.
Certainly. Yeah. And it's been a place I didn't bring up in here because I don't want to dilute the message, but I'm curious too. I've talked with a couple of business brokers. They've been at smaller level, right? About, hey, if you spot some things like this inside of a company where if you want to like sell that to a private equity group or on the market for a much higher dollar value, do you ever talk with the owners and the C-suite and everyone about, hey, you should go do a quick due diligence in digital or marketing and improve these items real quick before we even take you to market? Feedback I've gotten from two of them was not typically. We'll keep it mostly financial in nature, right. And then we'll let the private equity groups tell us what needs to happen because sometimes it might move a little slower. We might have some room to do those improvements, but usually they're looking to move that along so quickly. They're not. From the two I've talked to, only two, right. Just, yeah, hey, it's not usually that big of a concern. And as of yet, we haven't done enough with companies and not seen an acquisition happen after that we've had the opportunity to go back and say to that company, hey, do you want us to do this for you, even though you didn't move that, right. that activity forward?
Well, I find it in very limited experience with private equity is that the industry that they're investing in typically has that Amazon effect where they're doing a roll up, trying to achieve the efficiencies to compete with the quote Amazons of the world. So if I look at the industry and then the private equities, I look at their business model and how they're looking for target companies with X EBITDA, et cetera. Gets into the financial, but combining the industry and their model themselves, you may find that you can find a niche out there versus broad-based private equity.
I think we sort of have been, and this is, if I look at the two private equity groups we deal with, their investment philosophy is mostly concerned with manufacturing, distribution, and business services, almost entirely B2B, right? Very tiny amount of B2C. And so I know that's biasing the things that I'm even looking at, because one of the questions somebody asked me recently was, does any of this apply to venture capital? And I was like, I really don't know that, because it seems like venture capital, or like you bring up, other private equity groups might already be a little bit more tech savvy. And that's part of the reason I'm trying to ferret out, is this actually a trend larger than just a couple of private equity groups I'm working with, or did it just happen that like we started working with these two that are more interested in, manufacturing B2B kind of space?
Sure. And a quick 2 seconds is that the investment industry I see is changing in that they're bringing down like accredited investors. They're bringing down the thresholds for that, and that you're going to see more private equity in the future, where people have the ability to invest in companies without just going to the private markets. So your trend, I think, is right. It's just a matter of finding how you get in a flow where you can, sort of capitalize on your expertise at the beginning, the introductions, and then roll into where your businesses, can actually sort of develop and work with clients long term. But I would look at a higher level of what's the private equity, what is their model as they roll up companies, because if they're going to roll it up, they're not going to invest in the company. They're just going to move the revenue, the clients, et cetera. So if you can get into where you fit, you bring the cogs to the wheel in and just keep bringing them in, that's where I would see the model. could flow for you, and that you're the guy they call to say, hey, we're bringing in a new company. Let's connect them.
I would love that. Absolutely. Rick, we should talk later. Absolutely.
Sure.
If you
Absolutely.
wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
put my contact information in the chat as well.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Great questions.
And I have a follow-up question. If do you see yourself being at the center of some of this activity in terms of matchmaking? Like, could you become like a referral source in a way to say, okay, this PE firm is focused on female owned and operated businesses, and they're interested in what Carrie Pierce over here is doing, right? And then you happen to know that there's also Jenna Shriver over here and Tina Thomas over here. Like, is there a role that you can play in helping that PE firm kind of gather lookalike companies based on their thesis? Is that something that's like an opportunity at all for you?
Potentially. I think I myself right now am learning business development, right? And one of the best pieces of feedback I got from another VD professional recently was, this is not a sales process. This is a providing value process. So you talk with people, understand what they need, offer value to them in any way that you can, and keep those connections alive, right? And it actually kind of plays back into my background is mostly in public relations. And so I think about it from sure, if I see an opportunity there and I know the investment philosophy of a company and that someone is looking to sell, like, oh, heck yeah, I want to make an introduction. Even if that's not the case, if anything else, what I really enjoy about 1 Million Cups is, for instance, we get to talk amongst, it's entrepreneur to entrepreneur. So I always I have my little, moleskin that I write down every single entrepreneur that I meet with, and specifically the exact client that they want to talk with, who their ideal person is. And not only does this help me, our company, build a kind of network of trusted vendors to execute certain kinds of work on behalf of these companies, but it also helps me make introductions between people to say, like, oh, I know an engineer who specializes in just manufacturing floor optimization. And I just met a injection molding company on the Front Range, and they really need help tooling this one thing. I got the exact person, right? And so those are, less of a, I suppose, business broker kind of standpoint, and more of a just like, I want to make introductions. And I also, I have a fervent need to learn about what people's passion are and what drives them. And that's one reason I'm so attracted to the entrepreneurial community and as a whole. So actually, Graham, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to take 1 second and say, at the beginning of all this, you said one of the values really inside of 1 Million Cups is we offer, hey, what can the community do for you and what can you do for the community? I've asked the community what you can do for me, help validate these things, and you guys are. But if anyone here would love to talk about digital marketing or web presence, or heck, even private equity stuff, I would love to give time and just talk with you. You've seen what our companies who we're interested in as customers, it wouldn't be a customer or me trying to sell you anything relationship, just any way that I can provide value and just spitball for an hour. I'm always for that if anybody would like to do that.
Thank you, Devin. Yeah, and we will we'll conclude with the what can the community do for you, which you've already kind of posed in terms of the questions at the end of your slide deck. But we do have a couple more questions, mostly, Mick, these are from you about the user interface and development of the software itself. Do you want to just go ahead and kind of ask both of those questions at once?
Yeah, this is more concerned with the your internal processes within the company. It's, what's your developer? Do you need developers? Are you using off-the-shelf software? How are you going to be creating these dashboards? And do you basically do you have the technical chops to do all of these things, or do you need to bring that into your company as well in order to make it more efficient?
A great question. We internally, we are a team of 3, right? So it's myself, my co-founder, and our CTO, who has exceptional depth in Golang, Python development, and other infrastructure related tasks. And then we have one front-end developer. Between us and the software that we use, for instance, we're speaking strictly about the dashboards here, Google Data Studios, right? So we use Google Data Studio to do the front end of that dashboard. And then we might use BigQuery, for instance. And then we might have to develop, because BigQuery and Google Data Studio are just perfect, right? Cool. I can also pull in Google Tag Manager, you know, through Google Analytics, through all these other sources, because a lot of sources have good APIs and endpoints, like CallRail, for instance, for call tracking. But when it gets into some like nittier grittier, like, okay, they have an on-prem ERP, which doesn't integrate to anything, we can build custom pipelines for that. We have done that, for instance, even just to pull metadata and product data from an inventory system on-prem, which is like old school, and they did not want to upend, to populate up to an e-commerce website. So because we have the technical chops to execute that kind of work, we can pretty confidently build a pipeline as long as there's some kind of API access, right? To what we need to move things into Data Studio and use that as kind of the plane, the ultimate like glass plane that they look at. Yeah. You know, what I was going to mention though is for any of the other work that we kind of do outside of that, the strictly technical bits, that's where we really utilize a network of trusted vendors that we have. So when it gets into like the, hey, yeah, how do you do brand strategy, right? How do you do story brand architecture? I've read the thing. I'm not an expert at it, but we have an expert at it, right? Her name is Tish Gantz. She also is a UX expert. And so when we need to do UX design, for instance, or something like that, we'll go out to somebody with the expertise and the technical chops there to really execute that.
Great answer, because I was specifically also thinking about UX, because that is so important. Yeah, in terms of dashboard and stuff, I think you need to think in terms of making it modular rather than one size fits all, because you're not going to achieve one size fits all. It never works.
I certainly would not expect that for the individual Portco dashboards, right? Where like, yeah, no, like there's no way I could apples and oranges, like oh yeah, we just plug everything in. But that's where, you know, my mind gets spinning, and I've put this out to our private equity partners right now, and they're sort of figuring out and giving me a couple answers about like, hey, okay, well, yeah, you have your dashboard over here that you could click into and drill down for any company. But if you could see all the companies on one dashboard, what would those metrics be that you want to see, right? How do you relate those, right? Are those, you know, website visibility based on a weighted average of SEO, website speed, sales revenue by channel? What are those metrics? Because what I'm trying to do is increase the sticktivity of our company and these private equity groups. So that, and I think this has been kind of alluded to through a few of these conversations, is I want to be a rubber stamp, right? When you have client that looks like X and then you have any kind of digital presence, use us. Get in there, do a small audit, create that dashboard individually for the company, and now relate that to a dashboard for all our portcos. And if you have this dashboard going for all your portcos, you're going to be incentivized to use us on future deals. So that's kind of my thinking in that.
So you really have a database specifically, tactically, let's say, and then there's a meta database that talks about all the companies that you are working with?
I believe.
I mean, that's what I thought in my mind, that's what you were talking about in terms of what, you know, the common database stuff, that the PE can look at that.
It's when we're talking about I'm not as well versed technically as our CTO. I can tell you that the back end of everything that we've been developing, we've been doing on Amazon Aurora is the database that we're using to scale. And then we have Kubernetes clusters that actually manage the individual processes and sync tool work that goes out for any of the individual stuff that we build. And we've sort of built our own database inside of Aurora to make things exceptionally kind of functional for us. So we can check bidirectional syncing. We can figure out what way something's synced, even in order to like kick off certain, attributes that are happening with that. And somehow then we built a thing that connected to BigQuery, and then BigQuery is kind of what we pull to get most of the metrics inside of Google Data Studio, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So Devin, we have to wrap it up, but do you want to sort of rephrase or recap your ask from the end of your slides, or do you feel that you've already conveyed that sufficiently?
No, I'll like it's called actions on a website, right? You want 10 of them. So I'll recap it again. If anyone here knows private equity partners or people in private equity or themselves have some expertise inside of it, I want to talk. Absolutely want to talk. And it's not to sell, it's to understand. I am doing the UX work right now, the user-centered design of, is this a trend worth investing in? And that would be my first ask. My second is, if you personally just want to talk about anything related to anything I spoke about in today's meeting, digital marketing, web design, web presence in general, I would absolutely love to talk with you and help you out in any way that I could. I've put my information in the chat window, but my email is Devin, DEVIN, @Zentainer.io.
Thank you, Devin.
Yep.
Excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent Q&A session here with you. We're nearing the end here, so we can all go back to nail biting over the election. I'll kick it over to Val to close us out. Val, take it
Awesome.
away.
Hey, thanks everybody for showing up today. I know most of you are returns. Anybody, this was their first time coming today? Libby, thank you for joining us. Love that. It was nice to have both Openix and Zentainer, and thank you to both of them. Again, thanks to our community sponsors. We've got Magic and we have Furnace Hills Coffee. Don't forget that Graham put the code for the 25% off at Furnace Hills in there, so take advantage of that. We even have Magic Beans for Magic. It's pretty exciting. Next week, we have 2 more presentations scheduled. We have FinPlea and we have Garnish Health. So we will see you same time next week with some more exciting stories. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. See you next time.
Hi, guys.
Take care.